Get out of my cab right now. I don't care who you are, you rich snobs." The blast exploded like a grenade inside the cramped cabin of an old black cab, snaking through rain-soaked central London. The driver, a thin mustachioed man with eyes full of tired bags named Yusuf Malik, clasped the steering wheel tightly, as if about to crush the bar. His eyes are burning. In the back seat, the man in the thick suit and dark beanie hat was just silent. Strange silence. Not silent people are afraid. It's not silent anger. More like silence, forgiveness, but Joseph did not realize it. He was too tired, too long to bear the burden of life that increasingly shook his shoulders. 15 hours of driving without a break to pay for the hospital expenses of his son, who was struggling with an acute lung infection. Little does she know that the man she just berated is Prince Harry, an undercover member of the royal family, trying to live like a normal person for an undisclosed reason. Joseph was the type of man who no longer believed in miracles. Since his wife died in an accident 5 years ago, his life has spun in a monotonous and painful cycle. The only light in her life is Alia, the only daughter of her shadow who is now lying weak in the ICU. The cost of treatment swells. Permanent employment does not exist. He sold his motorcycle, mortgaged his late wife's wedding ring, and finally hired an old taxi owned by an acquaintance to attract a fortune on the streets. That night, however, all the pressure peaked. When the stranger got into his taxi and called the luxurious address in Notting Hill with a flat tone and a closed face, Joseph immediately judged. The rich snob who does not know how painful life is. He was driving with a lot of frustration. When the man just sat quietly, not opening the conversation, and occasionally looked out the window with a sad face, Yusuf exploded. He felt slighted, laughed quietly, and he lost control. "You are an ignorant man. Sit still like you want to buy people's lives. I want to go to hell if I can." The man just looked at her. Rain soaked the window panes. Faintly, a red light reflected off the silhouette of his face. A face that once adorned magazines, TV screens, and every corner of Buckingham Palace. But Joseph did not recognize him. "All right," the man said quietly. "Well then, I'm down here." Without another word, he lowered the door handle and stepped down onto the wet pavement. Yusuf snorted irritably, stepped on the gas, and left without looking back. A few hours later, when Yusuf finally returned to his cramped flat, he found a message from the hospital. "Alia's father? Someone just came here. It pays your child's entire medical bill." He did not leave a name, saying only, "This is for the father who is being tested." Joseph was silent, his body trembling. His brain refuses to understand reality. Who is this guy? Why help me? How did he know about Alia? The next day, the news exploded. Prince Harry spotted without an escort in central London. Is he posing for a humanitarian mission? Joseph saw a face on the TV screen. His heart stopped for a moment. That's the guy from my cab. Yusuf Malik. A stubborn widower with a dark past, suffered from mild PTSD from an accident that claimed his wife, has an inner conflict about self-esteem and a deep sense of guilt towards his child. Prince Harry lived a voluntary exile from court life. He is running a secret project to help an unknown citizen, as a form of atonement for his controversial past decisions. Haunted by guilt as a British teenager commits suicide after a media attack involving a royal named an external conflict arose when the media began to sniff out Yusuf's whereabouts, and the palace began to find out who was the rude chauffeur who cursed the prince. But internal conflicts are the most burning. Joseph fought with shame and pride. Harry struggles with his own quest for identity and a mission of forgiveness. "Why me?" Joseph muttered softly, standing stiffly between two men in black suits. The cold air bit into his bones. The invitation letter from Clarence House feels heavy in the hand, as if it holds more than words. London, 7:14 a.m. The streets began to get crowded, but Joseph felt as if the whole world stopped around him. He turned toward the ICU window, where Alia was still lying, her breathing rising and falling weakly under the aid of the machine. The nurse just shrouded him carefully. The little girl didn't even know her life had just been saved by the man her father had made such a big deal out of the night before. The black royal car drove past the high iron gate. Joseph couldn't stop staring out the window, feeling like he was drifting into a nightmare mixed with sweet dreams. This world, too foreign to as he got out of the car, an old man in a long coat greeted with a small nod. "Mr. Malik, please come in. Your Majesty is waiting." Joseph's steps echoed in the lonely marble hallway. Portraits of aristocrats from past centuries look at him from the walls, as if judging by his existence. Cold sweat soaked his temples. He didn't even breathe long enough to stay in the room. Then he arrived. Double wooden doors opened slowly, and in the center of the room with soft lighting stood Prince Harry, without a royal suit, wearing only a dark sweater and simple fabric pants. In his eyes, there was no anger, just a deep wound. Joseph swallowed. "Want to talk? Want to apologize? Want to explain that all was because of despair, because he lost the direction of his life?" Prince Harry opened his mouth. "May I ask you one thing?" His voice is calm. "When you curse at me, you look like someone who has lost everything. Is that right?" Joseph looked up. "I lost my wife and almost lost my son. If it weren't for you," his voice choked. "But I didn't know who you were then." Harry smiled a little. "That's why I chose you." Joseph frowned. Harry continued. "I was looking for someone for a very personal project. Someone who is not bound by politics or power. Someone who knows the pain, but doesn't give up. I need you." "For what?" Joseph's voice was barely audible. "To save people like Alia. Children who are invisible to the system. I have funds, but I need someone who knows where to start." Harry took Joseph to a private room. There, she opened medical files, social reports, and even photos of children from various backgrounds who suffered similar fates to Alia. Harry showed her the notes he had collected himself since leaving palace life. "All this. I did it because one boy committed suicide last year, after his family couldn't save him. I know his name, I know his face, but I could never help in time. His eyes are glazed. I want to redeem that." Joseph was silent. The emotions are mixed. Admiration, guilt, inspiration, fear. It's hard to believe all this is real. Himself, an ordinary taxi driver, was summoned by a prince, not to be scolded, but to cooperate in saving lives. "I will bear all the costs of Alia for life," said Harry. "And after he's healed, I want you to work with me, as a bridge between two worlds." Joseph looked at the prince, speechless. Harry added, "But you have to be ready. The world will not stand still. Once they know who you are, you will be highlighted, skinned, even hostile." Joseph took a deep breath. "I just want my son to live. The rest, let God take care of it." It didn't take long for the media to start smelling the unusual scent. An anonymous blog leaked a photo of Joseph entering Clarence house. Issues grow wild. Is the royal family being held hostage by a mysterious person? Is this a new government strategy? And even more dangerous, a cunning journalist named Lena Fairfax, who was once Harry's longtime enemy in the media, begins to investigate who Joseph really is. "I will reveal everything. No one is clean in London, let alone a taxi driver who can get into the palace," he told his producer with a grin. "If you love your child, stop now." Those words continued to reverberate in Yusuf's head, even as the doctor said Alia began to show a positive response. Even when her daughter opened her eyes for the first time after weeks. Even when happy tears rolled down her cheeks. The fear doesn't go away. Holding Alia's weak little hand, Yusuf seemed to return to the past. At the time, he lived in Bradford. Life is simple with Layla, his cheerful wife, whose hobby is writing poetry behind grocery receipts. But that night, when the car they were riding in was hit by a drunk driver, everything changed. Yusuf had only a minute to decide: save Layla, who collapsed in the front seat, or their baby who was stuck in the back. He chose to save Alia, and since then, Joseph has never slept without nightmares. A dream in which he hears Layla's voice calling him from behind the flames. A dream that makes him sweat cold and hate himself. After Alia falls asleep again, Yusuf secretly returns to Clarence house, asking to meet Harry in person. He was carrying a cell phone and playing a tape of the threat last night. Harry listened as he sat quietly, but his eyes narrowed suspiciously. "The voice is female, not from our internals," she said. "Be careful, Joseph. There are more people who want to see us fail than there are people who want to see us succeed." Joseph looked at the prince. "You know who?" Harry hesitated. "There is someone. But not yet. I'll give you a bodyguard. Quietly. Don't tell anyone, not even the hospital family. Coming out of the gates of Clarence House, Joseph was approached by an elegantly dressed old woman with a broad-brimmed hat and a shiny wooden staff. His eyes were sharp, as if he could see into the heart. "Are you Yusuf Malik?" he asked with a very aristocratic British accent. "Yes." "Don't believe everything he tells you." "Who?" "I'm Lady Rowena. I used to raise Harry, and I know when he's lying." Before Yusuf had time to ask further questions, the woman had walked away, greeted by a personal driver in an old Jaguar car. Later that night, Yusuf sat alone in front of Alia's room, staring at a video of Harry smiling into the camera while giving a public statement about the abandoned children's aid program. Is all this just imaging? Thought Joseph. But then, she remembered the first time she saw Harry on that rainy night. No cameras. No guards. Just a man with a face full of panic, holding Alia and begging the hospital to act quickly. That face can't be faked. However, Lady Rowena seemed to know something, and Joseph felt his instincts tremble. He needed to investigate. A few days later, while Joseph was cleaning old things from his Camden apartment, he found a dusty box of books, tapes, and a sealed envelope addressed to him, but never opened. The handwriting there belongs to Layla. With trembling hands, Joseph opened the letter. "Joseph, if you're reading this, maybe I'm gone. I knew you'd blame yourself. But please, no. We never know God's plan. And if one day you have to choose between me and our son, choose Alia. I want your life to be full of hope, not regret. And if you meet someone who gives you a second chance, even if you don't feel worthy, accept it. It could be God's love for you." The letter made Joseph sit on the floor, sobbing silently. If he's still alive, why only now? The sentence was like a sledgehammer that hit Joseph's consciousness when he saw the red origami folds on his son's table. An unmistakable symbol, spy symbol, the symbol of Zarek Malik, his brother who was reportedly killed in a secret military mission in Bosnia 15 years ago. Zarek is always bolder, smarter, more charismatic. From a young age, Joseph knew he could never catch up with his older brother. But Zarek is also mysterious. He often disappeared without notice, and even their parents gave up finding out where he had gone. Finally, Yusuf heard the news that his brother became an MI6 agent. But then there was news of an accident. A charred body was found. Identification is done. And since then, only empty tombs they visit every year. Now, the sign has reappeared. And if true, then Alia's life is in danger not only because of politics, but because of something deeper, family betrayal. Joseph returned to Clarence House with the origami, and Harry recognized him immediately. Red Butterfly was once used by 2 of our agents, but both died. "That one might not be," said Joseph softly. "That's my brother's sign." Harry stood up from his chair, his expression turning tense. "Zarek Malik?" "Yes. If that's true, we have to talk to someone. I strongly dislike being involved with MI6. Harry takes Joseph to the back garden of Kensington Palace, where a secret meeting is held with an old agent named Morris Langford. White hair, eyes like an eagle, and a cold voice like a bullet that won't miss. "Zarek is our legend," he said unceremoniously. "But he's also dangerous. The last time he appeared on our network, he was trying to dismantle the system from the inside. We don't know if he died or disappeared on purpose." Morris looked straight at Joseph. "If he left you a message, then you are part of his final mission. Like it or not." Joseph felt his stomach twist. He's just a taxi driver, not a secret agent. But now, his own blood is dragging him into a terrain he doesn't understand. That night, Joseph looked at an old family photo. Zarek stood tallest, hands on Yusuf's shoulders, like a shield that could not be touched. But Joseph began to remember something darker. The last night they met, Zarek talked about the organization in the shadows, which infiltrated the military, parliament, even the kingdom. "If I'm lost, don't trust anyone. Not even me." And now, Alia is threatened. Joseph is caught between believing in the prince he cursed, or his own brother who may be alive but turned into a figure he cannot recognize. Mysterious explosion. A message from the past. The next day, Joseph received an anonymous package. In it there are London Underground map with red dots in 3 locations. An old photograph of Zarek standing in front of what is now the Parliament office. A USB with voice notes. When played, the sound is Zarek's. The recording is noisy, but clear. "If you hear this, then everything we fear becomes real. They will kidnap children for illegally funded biological experiments. And someone from inside the castle protects them. Don't trust anyone, even Harry. And while Yusuf was digesting the message, there was an explosion at one of the map locations, Russell Square Station. The evening news broadcast CCTV footage from the scene before the explosion. The figure seen standing near the trolley was a man in a long robe, a faint face, but wearing Zarek Malik's signature military watch. Joseph stood in front of the screen. Harry called, "We need to talk. Now." But when Joseph looked out the window of his apartment, there is a shadowy figure standing on the roof of the building opposite. "Look at him. If I wanted you dead, Joseph, you wouldn't have seen me standing here." The voice came from behind the darkness, quiet, low, and so familiar. Yusuf was transfixed, staring at the figure on the roof of the building across from him, who now jumped down and disappeared in the back hallway. His heart beats like a war drum. He knows that voice. Zarek. A few minutes later, Yusuf ventured down the narrow hallway behind his apartment. He brings nothing but guts and curiosity mixed with fear. His steps echoed on the wet road. The smell of metal and damp pierces the nose. Then, from behind the shadow of the garbage container, someone appeared. A tall man, neatly bearded, with a faint cut on his temple and a look in his eyes that he used to see only when Zarek returned home from military training. "You haven't changed," said the man, grinning. Joseph almost collapsed. "Zarek." "Not the time to be sentimental." Zarek raised his hand. "You don't have much time. They know you have the tape. They know you're talking to Harry. And they know about Alia." "Who are they?" snapped Joseph. Zarek approached. "Ordo Cumulus." Zarek started talking fast and sharp, as if every second was a threat. "The Order of Cumulus is a secret cross-country network, a mix of former military scientists and corrupt politicians who believe that the population should be selected for the sake of the evolution of human civilization. They kidnap children with a specific genetic history, like Alia, who has a rare blood disorder, who turns out to hold the rare immune key to an experimental vaccine project." "Harry knows some of it," Zarek said. "He trusted the system too much. You can't depend on him." Zarek opened a small bag and put two options in front of Yusuf: a fake passport, £100,000 in cash, and a plane ticket to Argentina to disappear with Alia. A drive containing data that could dismantle the entire network of the Order, but at the risk of Alia's life. "So decoy. Choose, Yusuf," said Zarek coldly. "Be a father or a hero." Joseph was transfixed. Breathing is heavy. Chest tightness. "You want me to leave him or sacrifice him?" Zarek is down. "I want you to be human, not a pawn." Back at the hospital, Yusuf found a picture in Alia's hand that had just been drawn with crayons. A man in a robe and wings, and a smiling girl hugging him. Under it is written shaky handwriting, "My father is my protector." Joseph rubbed his eyes. That choice is now not about him. It's not about Zarek, but about what Alia will remember about her father as a protector or a coward. Joseph meets again with Harry, who begins to suspect after hearing the name of the Order of Cumulus. Harry explains that there are mysterious funds going into the Royal Children's Health Project, against the backdrop of a shell company that turns out to be connected to the old MI6. "We cannot break." "I need you to stay by my side," said Harry. "You're the driver, the father, and the victim. They won't suspect you." Joseph looked deeply into Harry's eyes. "If I lose Alia, you will be responsible." "If you lose Alia," Harry said quietly, "I will destroy the Order myself." That night, Yusuf returned home, carrying a flash that Zarek had given him. When plugged into a laptop, the file opens. Rows of names, photos, and locations. All of them are important people, politicians, generals, CEOs of pharmaceutical companies. In the center of the list was the name and photo of one of the most unexpected people, Lady Rowena, the woman who once warned Joseph not to trust Harry. Then suddenly the screen flashes, and an automatic message appears. "Yusuf Malik, you have been tracked. Your choice has triggered the pursuit protocol. Time left, 72 hours. The whole system at this hospital is going to shut down in 3 minutes, and after that, they're going to grab Alia." Harry's statement made Joseph stand stiffly. The lights in the ICU began to flicker. A faint alarm sounded from the server room. Someone has infiltrated the hospital system. Race against time. When everything is a target, Joseph pressed the elevator button repeatedly, but the signal died. He ran to the fire escape. The wind is hunting. His knees were barely able to withstand the weight of the panic. But one thing occupied his mind. He broke into the ICU. Empty. Her daughter's bed left only a folded blanket and a small doll on the floor. Within minutes, Yusuf's phone received an anonymous short video. Surveillance cameras were broken, leaving only the silhouette of a tall man in a black suit carrying Alia into a white van. In the rearview mirror of that car, a small sticker was visible, the red butterfly emblem. Zarek, or someone posing as him. In the silence of the apartment, Yusuf stared at the CCTV footage, trying to enlarge the image. The hand that held Alia was wearing Zarek's identical ring, but his gestures are not the same. Rougher, more brutal. This is not him, murmured Joseph. But if it's not Zarek, then there's a traitor in Zarek's network. And Joseph went back to ground zero. He couldn't trust anyone. That afternoon, Joseph ventures to meet Lady Rowena, the mysterious woman who had previously warned about Harry. The meeting took place in an old park in Oxford. He came dressed in a blood-red velvet coat, a classic fur hat, and a subtle smile like the devil in Renaissance paintings. "I know they're going to take your son," she said flatly, sipping tea. "They need pressure on you." "Who are they?" Joseph asked sharply. "The Order is only a name," Rowena replied. "Structure. But his brain is all around you, even closer than you think." "Harry," Joseph hissed. Rowena just smiled and handed me a small envelope. "What's in it?" Old photo Harry and Zarek, sitting together, wearing military uniforms with the red butterfly emblem. Joseph rushed to Harry, throwing the photo on the table. "Explain." "Harry did not escape. We used to work together. Me and Zarek. We believe in the system. But one day, he starts to see the dark side of the system. I want to fix it from the inside. He wants to destroy it. And you think, my son should be part of your conflict?" snapped Joseph. Harry got down. "I thought I could protect him. But you're right. It's not about you or me. It's about them, who are above us." Harry finally handed over his personal access card. "Use this to get into the palace's secret database. There are coordinates where Alia may be hiding. But once you get in, they'll know. That means I only have one shot," Yusuf said quietly. "And after that, they will send assassins. Not a threat. Facts." That night, Yusuf infiltrated an old building that looked like a historical museum, but underneath it was hidden the palace's data control room. A black-level repository of digital documents. He only had 30 minutes before the system tracked his IP location. With the help of a hacker from Zarek's past named Maeva, Yusuf eventually breaks into the main terminal. There, he found the Eden Project. Alia Malik's name is listed as Subject 07X, blast location, private island in the north of Scotland. Codenamed Cumulus Arc, but he didn't have time to save the entire file. The alarm went off. "Locking system." Maeva shouted from the headset. "They are coming, Yusuf. You have to run now." When Joseph escaped from the basement, he passed through an old corridor full of dust. At the end of it, a figure of a man stood, his shadow closing the way out. The silhouette is familiar, tall, sturdy, and calm. "You've come far enough to be a hero," the heavy voice echoed. Zarek, his eyes are no longer the same. His gaze was cold. His face was merciless. "If you keep going," he said, raising his gun, "you are no longer my sister. Put down your gun, Zarek. We can talk. There's nothing more to talk about. You kidnapped Alia. You know he's my son. Why? Because he is also my blood." Joseph's heart stopped beating. Zarek's speech struck like an explosion in a vacuum. Zarek looked at Yusuf in heavy silence. Behind his gaze, there was an old wound that had never healed. "Alia is not just your child," he said quietly. "He's also my nephew." Joseph was stunned. "What do you mean?" "My sister, your wife, used to be Fyra. He's not just your love. He's also part of our network. Before you married her, she and I were in Red Butterfly for a long time." "Lie," Joseph shouted, his eyes reddened. "Believe me, I want it to be a lie," Zarek said. "But all the records are here." He pulled out a sheet of documents from his suit. The ultrasound images, the medical records. Fyra's tape mentioned two names, Yusuf and Zarek, has key figures in his life. In the mission he undertook to save the next generation. He is no ordinary boy, Joseph. It's not just our blood. He's the key to breaking this cycle of power. All of Joseph's beliefs collapsed. All this time, he thought Fyra was just a woman who loved him. An ordinary housewife who died in a tragic accident. Now he has to accept the fact that Fyra is a secret agent. He may never have loved Joseph completely. The child she's been protecting has been a target since before she was born. In a flashback full of guilt, Joseph recalled how he used to force Fyra to stop working, how he ignored the last message Fyra sent a week before he died. A voice he had never heard to this day. In the underground passage, Yusuf played a file from Fyra's old cell phone. The woman's voice sounded trembling, but clear. Joseph, if I don't come back, take care of Alia. But if one day Zarek comes, listen to him. He knows what I brought. And you have to believe it, even if it hurts. Joseph's tears fell. During this time, he kept the wound from being left behind. But now he realized, Fyra never left because he gave up. He left because he fought. And now, Joseph must continue his fight. The two men stared at each other. The old wounds have not healed, but one thing unites them. Alia, where is he now? Asked Joseph at last. Zarek replied they transferred him to Cumulus Ark, a research island guarded by secret forces. How many people? 40, including ex-mercenaries, scientists, and the one person we can't touch, Crown Prince Alexander. Joseph frowned. Son of King Charles? Zarek nodded. He is the leader of the New Order. And he wanted Alia the most. They made a plan. Infiltrate a secret military port in Scotland. Stealing a small boat. Infiltrate the island of Cumulus Ark before the 21st, the day on which Project Eden's experiments began. But before leaving, they must avoid hunters from the Order who have marked them as living dead targets. One of them, a masked woman with the code name Seraphine, the shadow of Zara's past, and secretly her former lover.